Hello, I'm Sue Stockdale, the Association for Coaching's podcast host. Today I'm talking to Terecina Kwong, Chief Operating Officer at HSBC Bank in China. And she will be speaking at the conference in Track 1, Leading with the Coach Approach, about influence to unleash others' potential. Welcome, Terecina.
Hello, Sue.
Great to speak to you today. Now, this word influence that you have in your title, I'm wondering, how do you go about influencing those 1,200 employees that you have across China to lead?
That's a good question because China is a big country and we do operate in 50-something cities, right? So it's not the easiest trying to do it only by face-to-face because it will involve lots of traveling and that's not possible to do on a day-in, day-out basis. And therefore, I think what's really important is in a big organization is be visible. Right, be a visible leader to be able to for people to have something to look up to. Yeah, so there are a combination of things in which I do regularly. Is I do town halls, I do exchanges, I do one-to-one mentorings. We do formal communication. We also do informal communication, and also every year, without the COVID-19 situation, we do bring people together twice per year, especially the leadership team, which is like my one down, like my two downs, to help them actually get together to get the synergy going. So I think what's really important for people is to understand there's a continuation of what I said. So is the re-enhancing of the messages, be it from a business perspective, be it from a diversity inclusion perspective, that's being included in the daily dialogues.
So you really make sure that you're getting your message and communication out there at all times through different means.
Indeed.
In terms of your leadership style, Terecina, if I was one of your employees and I was asking them to describe what's Terecina like as a leader, what do you think would be some of the things that they would say?
I do know because I do conduct quite regular reflective sessions with my teams as well, because I always believe that the more you listen, the more you understand how you're projecting yourself as a leader. It helps because it's really important that whatever you want to get across to people, it is in the shape and form that people actually can consume and understand, right? People usually will describe me as an open leader, right? And empowering. In a big organization, as an individual, I can't do everything myself. So it's actually really important for leadership teams, team leaders to understand what are their objectives and how they should be going about it, right? So definitely not micromanaging. So it's more around empowering people for them to really understand, use their own style and be able to do their job.
Sounds good. And where does coaching fit into that scenario? You're speaking at the Coaching in the Workplace conference. What does coaching mean to you, first of all? How would you define it? And where does it fit into the organization?
I think coaching is really important in leading teams, right? Because if you are not able to tailor different approaches in managing a team and coach the people that you manage, it becomes a very task or transaction driven leadership. Coaching for me, it means that understanding individuals like in personally, and therefore be able to help them to shine with strength, while at the same time to recognize what other gaps and development areas are and for them to work on it, right? I'm a strong believer that each of us are different, right? And this is important for people to feel comfortable in their own work, for them to really think about how they want to conduct their own career. And there is no one straight formula for everyone to adopt. And therefore, coaching for me means that it's leading them with probing questions for them to think about what's right for them. Yeah, there's no right and wrong answer. When you probe different people, people will give you different answers. And that helps them to understand more clearly what they want in life, right? Because one thing I always said is whether you like it or not, most of us do need to have a paycheck to go home. So it just means that work, it's such a fundamental part of our life, right? For a very, very big part of it, while coexist with lots of things, which is also very important to many of us, like family, like friends, parents, kids, right? And also yourself having me times, right? So all those things you need to juggle throughout your career life. And therefore, it's so important that you understand what your end game and how you want career to play a bigger part in your life. And that's what coaching means to me. So it's not only work coaching. For me, it's more around the realization of oneself. And therefore, you'll be able to find a better position of work. And then you know what you want to achieve, and you know what are the development gaps that you need to have.
So that real sense that you described, Terecina, about self-responsibility. So having an idea for your own self, what you want for your work and your life.
And a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then
exactly.
those questions get people to then develop their awareness, and then they have choice, I guess, to be able to adapt appropriately.
Absolutely.
Now, in this unprecedented time that we've all been faced with around the world, people, we've heard of exceptional stories of people stepping up as leaders to achieve amazing things. I'm wondering, have you seen that sense of, the potential and people flourishing in ways that you hadn't expected within your team?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Because as many of you would know, China is the very first country who kind of stepped right into this. There's no president, we don't have a different country to refer to in terms of what we need to do. And also the magnitude of scale of this virus only kind of slowly unfolds in previous months, right? So when it started, nobody know what we're actually facing with, right? And I'm not better than any others in terms of predicting, because I don't have a crystal ball. And that's what I find it's amazing is my team, it's kind of walking through this uncertainty together with me. And there are things in which people would think out of the box, go outside the comfort zone, and think a step further. So I think despite this COVID-19 situation is unprecedented and also quite a tragic situation for us, both from a human life perspective as well as from an economic environment perspective, there are some silver linings, right? I would say that as teams, people do realize that if you actually work in silos as team leaders, it won't work, because there are tasks or things that needs to be done is actually does not fit nicely into different businesses and functions, let's say that, right? And also, especially, for example, the situation of need to extensively work from home, facing lockdowns, it forces people to think beyond what the norm or they believed would be the norm, right? And it challenges people's thinking. So I think very early on, I already kind of show my vulnerability to the team. I said that, I don't know more than you guys. Probably based on my experience, I'll be able to kind of think through a lot more, but I would require them 100%, right? So whatever that you guys spot, you need to take it out. We debate it through, and therefore trying to find the right solution. So I'm actually really, really happy with my team because of the past 2-3 months. Is I kind of know that they are able to lead, but in the 2-3 months is leading with unknown challenges. I think it's definitely to the next level.
My sense from how you describe it there is there must be a very strong degree of psychological safety within your team, that people can speak up without fear of retribution, being challenged or judged, and to know that their ideas are valued. Would you agree with that?
I would say that before the team spirit is strong, but each of them would kind of mainly deal with the stuff they need from their own function perspective, right? So take a good example, it's technology, probably we'll be focusing just on technology resilience, right? Operation, just operation resilience. However, in times like this, we just need to look out for each other, right? We need to cover each other's back. So whatever that you picked up, be it in the news, be it what you observe from your team or from like different interaction with stakeholders or even clients, it forces people to think broader than your own remit, right? And I think that's what a good corporate leader should be, is if you're just focusing on what you are doing, then you will always be more of an expert in your own area. But if you're able to understand and transpire whatever that comes to your mind or you interact with into a broader corporate strategy or something we need to do for the firm, then it shows leadership, right? And I think in the past 2-3 months, what I see is people are a lot more connected, right? A lot more talk and more comfortable in terms of giving views on other departments, right? On things that, hey, you probably need to do like something different because that's what I sense. In normal days, people might have this as saying, it's your function. You probably know more than me.
Yeah.
But because the situation changes so fast, and therefore the sharing of information does enable that.
Yeah, when no one knows, it's all right to then
exactly
feel a sense of humanity and be looking out for the whole organization, not just your part of the organization.
Indeed.
Now, as a leader, Terecina, I'm imagining, therefore, you need to make sure that you're looking after you. And how do you take time to reflect and gain insight yourself so that you can recharge your batteries and be there to lead everybody else?
Yeah, so sometimes I do get questions from people saying that, Terecina, do you ever rest? Do you actually slow down? Right? And I do think about this a lot, so right, because I think one is I'm really passionate about what I do, right? Because I've been with the organization for a long time. I have done different roles for the organization, different geographic areas as well. I'm passionate what I do because I can make a difference, right? And I do believe in that. However, to your point, and also what I said earlier, is there are so many pieces to juggle in one's life, right? And therefore, what I try to do a lot is to do better work life integration, I would say, as in not only have better planning ahead in terms of what's going to come about from a work perspective, but also from family perspective. I also tend to share my schedule a lot with the team as well. It just helps people, right? Because I think one of the things that can give yourself a little bit more me time or thinking time is if you can manage stakeholders within your life in terms of their expectation. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you know that this is the time in which you book a holiday with your family, then tell your colleagues earlier that they need to step up and cover for you. Then it will actually enables you to enjoy a more peaceful holiday, right? So that's one thing I keep on encouraging my team also is like plan a little bit more ahead so that those who are supposed to support you and those probably will have additional responsibility because of your absence to juggle like different parties in life will have a better preparation for that. I do spend lots of time to make sure that my diaries allow me to have thinking time. So I block hours actually to make happen. Because I think in today's world, when everybody has such a busy schedule, it's so easy to lose the bigger picture.
Yeah.
So it's important for me to step back at least once per week to really look into what I've achieved this week or what I want to achieve this week and to take stock of if things doesn't go well, is it because of myself or is it because of external factors in which I've not taken into consideration to kind of try to learn through the journey. And I tend to take a lot of feedback as well. So the way in which I lead meetings is not so much me talking and then people just take instructions. I like to invite debate. So different coaches would have different also take on this. Some coaches tend to be more silent in meetings, kind of because of hierarchy. When the seniors speak, they tend to be less outspoken. But I will actually go around the table to make sure that everybody's being included, for them to voice any concerns. And I think it's really important when you do this process to demonstrate to people that you're not doing it for the sake of doing it. Right? So you're not just inviting ideas, and in the end, it's still my idea is the best, right? So people actually do notice that. So it's really important that throughout this journey, you really listen, and I think listening does help me a lot in terms of being a better me.
It also sounds like that as a leader, we have to accept we don't always have all the right answers. If we are listening, adopting other people's ideas as well.
Absolutely. And that listening can be to more junior colleagues, can be to your peers. We are just very different individuals, right? And we see things differently. And the older we are, the more experienced we are, the tendency of thinking that, hey, probably I know more than you will kicks in.
Yeah.
So it's about that consciousness that you always need to kind of take in more advice. It's something that would be my advice.
Now, the sense I'm getting from how you're describing that integrated approach to, if you like, work and life and helping other people understand what your priorities are and so they can support you effectively. I'm wondering, is that a regional thing? Is that something different? You mentioned you've worked in different geographies. I'm wondering, are there any particular peculiarities to working in China than perhaps other parts of the world that you've seen as a leader?
I would say that it's just something that I've kind of realized throughout my career, right? It's so easy that when people change jobs or roles within an organization, there'll be periods of time in which you get into quite a stressful environment, right? You're keen to perform. You want to make sure that you know exactly what you need to do to deliver, right? When you actually get into a new environment. And it's about, because I've done global roles and regional roles before, and you need to travel around and you start to realize that, hey, I'm actually not spending time enough with my family, and I've just, like, most of the time is on emails, on phone calls, right? And it's about that realization kicks in is you just don't want something to kind of leave it for another day and you will regret. And I think one of the things I've been trying to live to the fullest for myself is I want to make sure that there's no regret in life, right? And to do my best to do it, right? There will still be regrets, but if I can be more conscious in which the way in which I lead my life, then it's much better not to look back 20 years later thinking that, hey, I should have spent more time on this rather than the other. So I think it's about the way my career plans out in the past 20 years. It does come to that realization that not until if I don't have a better sense of what the bigger picture is, it's very easy to lose out like elements of it. And that's how I develop my consciousness.
That makes great sense. And that idea of leaving with no regrets. Easy thing to say, a difficult thing to do sometimes.
But I think that there's another bit to it is if you want to make sure you no regret is you make a decision, do it, move on. Even it doesn't turn out what you expected, never actually try to look back to say, hey, if I've done this, it might have turned better because nobody have a crystal ball. By the time you realize it, at the time you make a decision, you might not have all the facts with you, right? So it just goes by and stick to your decision would be something that I think helps with the no regret bit.
Absolutely. Now, thinking about again, and perhaps looking into the future here, we've all had to adapt to the changes of the COVID scenario. Leaders have had to adapt to how they operate. We're all working from home, or many of us are still operating from home. What do you think will be the differences that leaders will have to adopt or adapt to going forward as you see things evolving into what might be our new normal?
That's a very good question, Sue, because as China situation is about 4 to 6 weeks ahead compared to most country coming back to business and office resumption. That's a big realization for many of my peers and senior leaders within the organization is there's no really going back to norm, right? Because what is known. And also this situation of COVID-19 does prove to us that whatever that you try to contain as a normal process, you just break it within weeks or days because it just doesn't work anymore, right? I think maintaining that agility in thinking and ability to make more decision with less facts is something that is important to leaders. That's been one. The second thing, as you pointed out, many of us have been working from home or under lockdown situation. For many surveys that we've done in China, and also when I talk to my peers and colleagues around the world, is while many individuals do enjoy the flexibility of home working, in which some culture probably is not so much used to it than in some other countries. However, there will be a line manager or the middle management layer. Still, some of them might feel not as comfortable. It's just because of they are more used to face-to-face team management. And now we're moving into a much more virtual team management, right? So it can involve different skill set to motivate teams, to create that team spirit, to be able to make sure that work is still being delivered and productivity actually does not get impacted, right? And then therefore, for myself and for the wider team is that will be the next area which we focus on, right? So I think the new norm only works in preparation of future incidences or situation is if you enable people to feel that they're comfortable when doing the job. And the middle management layer usually are a very important layer within many organizations. Yeah, usually it's the executive team all agree from a strategy standpoint. When it cascades down through a few layers, message get lost, right? So how can you make sure that the middle layer actually feel empowered, feel that they actually can be a better self, even compared to the old norm? And that's, I think, would be something the world and many organizations need to focus on in the future.
My sense from how you're describing that, Terecina, is that perhaps a move away from hours worked to results delivered. So in a way, regardless of how many hours people work, whether they're home-based or virtual, have they delivered the results required as opposed to being sitting at their computer for 8 hours?
Absolutely, right? Because I think especially nowadays, there will still be jobs being managed by the volume or quantity being delivered, but there are also lots of jobs which is less measurable, right? Just by sitting around many hours doesn't mean that you're being productive, right? It just psychologically you're seeing that colleagues actually makes you think that it's actually productive. So it goes back to the point is I think virtual team management and goes about also coaching, right? Because if whatever I said earlier is if you're able to help people to understand what is the value of their work, and therefore they understand what is expected out of them for an outcome perspective rather than just kind of doing a certain piece of work, that helps with the productivity as well. So it's about making sure that the middle management will have different skills, enabling the team to lead the team.
Fantastic. And it sounds like very important, therefore, for you to reiterate the purpose and direction for the organisation, so that no matter where they are, whichever house they're sitting in virtually, or whatever they're doing, they know that they're part of that bigger organisation and where it's heading.
Totally. Because I think this is true for most leaders, right? Because we're just individuals. There's only so much you can do, right? And that's about how you expand your influencing space, so that more people are aligned to your thinking. And sometimes, regardless how they deliver it, whatever the end game you want to achieve or the outcome, if you've got people aligned to that outcome, I think is a good step forward so that people actually are bringing more energy to the work and being more creative rather than just kind of ticking the box, kind of doing stuff.
Well, I think you've given us a lot of food for thought there, Terecina, in how you describe what a leader should be thinking of as the world adapts to the new situation. And that if they come and listen to your presentation at the conference, they'll get a lot more besides. So thank you so much for your time today. It's been great to talk to you.
Thanks, Sue. Thank you.